My name is Ava Whitaker. And I'm 28. The night my boyfriend texted. At Natalie's tonight. Deal with it. Something inside me stopped asking for context and started taking measurements. I'm not a demolition crew by nature. I'm the person who labels cables and keeps warranty folders. I solve problems by putting them in order. But there's a difference between maintenance and denial. His message didn't arrive like a mistake. It landed like a blueprint for how he thought my dignity should be framed. I read it twice. Once as shock. Once as instruction. Deal with it. I set my phone down on the coffee table, where the coaster was already waiting for it. The apartment was quiet in the specific way. A place goes silent before a storm finds it. The overheads threw a warm grid across the floorboards. Caleb's sneakers were parked by the door, toes touching, like they were whispering. His jacket still hung on the back of a chair. Our photos watched me from the bookshelf, us in borrowed light, at rented sunsets, pretending that permanence was just another angle. I opened the hall closet and pulled down the good boxes from the last move, the ones with real corners and dignity. I lined them in a row and wrote with a black marker, closet, bathroom, desk, misc. It felt ceremonial. The way you do practical things when your heart needs a job. I started with his side of the dresser. Folded shirts into patient stacks. Belt coiled like a tame snake. The cologne he wore when he wanted to be noticed, without trying too hard. Tickets, he kept games. Concerts. A napkin with a date and a smiley face I realized was not mine. Natalie's name sat in my phone, like a splinter we'd both learned to pretend wasn't there. She's just a friend from college. He'd said, we have history, not chemistry. Tonight's text didn't sound like history. It sounded like rehearsal. I double-wrapped the framed photo of us at the lake. Careful fingers around glass that did not break when we did. His succulent. The ones that survived his underwatering out of pure spite. Fit in a shallow box with newspaper tucks to keep them steady. I am not cruel. I am finished. Every so often, I'd glance at the phone, expecting an apology to arrive. The screen stayed dark. Obedient. By the time I closed the last box, midnight had put its hand on the apartment's shoulder. I loaded my car in 2 trips. The building's cameras watched. Impartial witnesses. The night air smelled like wet asphalt and old promises. I knew where Natalie lived. Caleb had me drop him there once for a group hang. I mapped the turns without GPS. Like I'd practiced leaving and never admitted it to myself. Her building was the kind of renovated brick that pretends not to care that it's expensive. I parked under a streetlight because documentation likes clarity. The elevator hummed up to the 3rd floor. Outside her door, I stacked his life neatly. Wiped my hands on my jeans. Taped a note to the top box. Since you're staying there anyway. I didn't sign my full name. The moment didn't require it. Back home, I removed our keys from the dish by the door and held the silver one up to the light. I'd been meaning to upgrade to a smart lock. People say closure comes from within. Sometimes it also comes in anodized black with an installation video. 20 minutes later, the deadbolt clicked like a period at the end of a sentence that had gone on too long. I set up 2 resident codes. Mine and no one else's. Sleep found me in pieces. Every creak sounded like a decision coming back to check my work. I woke before my alarm to pounding on the door you could feel in the drywall. 7, 23 a.m. Through the peephole, Caleb's face filled the circle, rumpled hoodie. That particular anger men get when the world refuses to be a concierge. I cracked the door on the chain. If anger is a temperature, the hallway was a fever. What did you do to the locks? His voice tried for calm, and grabbed accusation instead. Upgraded them. I kept my tone level. The way you speak to smoke alarms. Only residents get codes. I am a resident. Let me in. Correction. You were a guest. You moved out last night. Your things are at Natalie's. The look that crossed his face was so quick, it almost didn't exist. Panic. Disbelief. Calculation. Then indignation took the wheel. You can't just throw me out. I didn't throw. I packed. Kindly. He pushed at the door. The chain cinched with a metallic no. Mrs. Chen from 4B cracked her door. Curlers, like punctuation. She would tell the building later that I was polite, and he was loud. And she would not be wrong. This is illegal. He said. You can't evict me. You were not on the lease. Caleb. You don't receive mail here. You contributed to groceries and utilities. This home was always mine. I allowed you to share it. Last night, you shared space with your ex. I dealt with it. It wasn't like that. We were just talking. Her roommate was having a crisis. And your crisis was that my patience had a limit. I kept my hands at my sides. Your boxes are safe and dry if you hurry. We might get rain. Something in him snapped at the word boxes. He made a sound that wanted to be a laugh, and couldn't find its footing. You're insane. Or organized. He tried a new tactic. Softened his face. Tilted his head. Ava. Baby, come on. We've been together almost 3 years. Exactly how long it took me to stop mistaking your confidence for character. I slid the phone toward the opening so he could see the screen. The screenshot was ready, the text with the timestamp, his words framed like evidence in a museum display at Natalie's tonight. Deal with it. He flinched. Not at the text. At the proof. From the elevator. Footsteps he'd brought back up. Of course. A manina golfjacket. Midheltos. Red, at the edges. Caleb's father had a handshake name. Roger. Caleb said once, like it would open doors. Miss Whitaker. Roger nodded. Then addressed me as if I'd invited a negotiation. We need to be reasonable. My son says. Your son says a lot of things. I kept my eyes on Roger. Not the way Caleb bounced behind him, like a grievance on a string. This conversation is over. Any further contact can come through text or email. I will respond through counsel, if necessary. Counsel, Caleb scoffed. You're being dramatic. Documentation isn't drama. Behind them, Derek from the front desk appeared at the stairwell. Arms crossed. Expression neutral, the way professionals are when they're absolutely taking sides. Everything okay here? Yes. I said. A former guest is leaving. Caleb's stare went hot enough to peel paint. You'll regret this. I regret giving you the benefit of the doubt, for as long as I did. I said. And closed the door. He pounded for another minute, a tantrum trying to audition as persistence until the percussion gave up. The quiet after was enormous. I leaned my forehead against the wood and breathed like I'd been underwater, and finally found the surface. In the kitchen. I made coffee. Not Triumph coffee. Not heartbreak coffee. Just coffee. Outside the window. The city moved on with its errands. Somewhere. A delivery truck reversed with the sound that announces caution and keeps backing up anyway. My phone lit up with numbers I didn't recognize. Messages I would not open yet. I put it face down and opened my laptop instead. Folders. Screenshots. Lease PDFs. A copy of the building's policy on residents versus guests. Notes from a conversation I'd had with the landlord months ago. Back when I first felt the floor tremble and decided to check the beams. People talk about revenge like it's an appetite. For me, it's architecture. You don't need to burn a house down to make it safe. Sometimes you just change the locks, label the boxes, and let the roof he built elsewhere keep him dry. By 9, I'd answered work emails, moved money into the right accounts, and sent one text to Derek thanking him for being present. He replied with a thumbs up and, "Cameras caught everything. Let me know if you need footage." My hands steadied around the mug. I thought that might be the end of it. It wasn't. The text started pinging before lunch. Unknown numbers. Unfamiliar pleading. I flipped my phone face down and let them collect like rain against a window you already decided to keep closed. A doi uns prezece p.m. Derek called from the front desk. Ava, there's a delivery here that requires your signature. Suspicious. I said, extremely. He said, and I could hear the smile he wasn't allowed to use in uniform. I rode the elevator down, with my shoulders relaxed, on purpose. In the lobby? Under the plant. I keep meaning to ask management to stop murdering. Stood Caleb and Roger. As if the morning had been a rehearsal, and this was the matinee. Beside them, 2 suitcases I recognized, because I had bought them when he'd said, "We're a team now, Miss Whitaker." Roger started, voice set to magnanimous. "We just want to talk. Lobby is not a confessional." I said, to Derek, "No deliveries accepted. To them, you do not have permission to come upstairs." "Derek," Roger said, trying a new door. "She illegally evicted my son." Derek maintained the poker face they must teach in a class. "Sir, she's the only tenant on the lease. We cannot allow non-residents upstairs without her consent." Caleb tried a different tool volume. "You can't make me homeless. You chose to spend the night at your ex-girlfriend's." I said, "I placed your belongings where you chose to be. Efficiency is not cruelty." People looked up from their phones. The building has a way of cataloging drama without appearing to. I felt the scene wanting to become a spectacle, and refused it. "Any further conversation?" I said. "Should be in writing." I nodded to Derek. He stepped forward like a curtain falling. The elevator doors opened on cue, and I let them close me into somewhere quiet, back upstairs. I made a sandwich I could taste and answered 3 actual work emails that reminded me the world still required competence from me. Around 3. Tess, my Saturday gym pal, whose bench press form is a sermon on geometry, texted, "You okay? Caleb is here at Riverside, throwing a tantrum. BC, you locked him out of his home. Manager is not having it." He knew my Saturday route. I typed back. He guessed wrong about my Friday one. There was a photo attached Caleb, red-faced, near the smoothie bar. Arms cutting the air like he was arguing with wind. I felt a twinge that was not regret. It was second-hand embarrassment. Tess followed with, "He's banned for the day. Security walked him out. Stay away from Riverside a bit." "Yeah, on it," I replied, and then turned off location sharing, like I should have months ago. By late afternoon, the story hit social media. As predictable as weather. Mutual friends started forwarding a post from Caleb, a long caption over an old photo of us laughing with our eyes. Curated proof that love had happened. Suddenly homeless. Blindsided. Abandoned by someone I trusted. There was a link to a Venmo account at the end that made me sit down. He had turned our breakup into a fundraiser for his pride. I wasn't going to say anything. Silence, in my experience, carries better than shouting if you give it a frame. But a dozen texts from women I barely knew, college acquaintances, adjacent bridesmaids, ex-coworkers arrived with variations of, "Is this true?" and "Are you safe?" and "I'm so sorry." Compassion wrapped around misinformation is still misinformation. I posted once. No caption. Just the screenshot. At Natalie's tonight. Deal with it. Timestamp visible. The next slide, the building's resident guest policy, with the relevant line highlighted. The third, a photo of a cardboard box labeled with his name. Edges. Neat as a boundary. I closed the app. It took 9 minutes for the comments to find me anyway. Not on my page. In my texts. Wow. Context. Kind of cold. He said her roommate had a crisis. I didn't respond. I let the screenshot breathe. At chasse, 32 ba. M. A notification? I didn't expect a comment on Caleb's post from a woman named Natalie profile photo, the same face I'd seen framed by his stories months ago. The one he'd said meant nothing beyond nostalgia. Her comment was short. "Is this why you left your things outside my apartment last night?" The post vanished in less than a minute. The internet is a magician, with a very obvious trapdoor. 2 hours later, a text pinged in from an unknown number. "This is Henry. We need to talk about Caleb." I didn't answer. Another came. "Natalie's boyfriend. Please. It's about her boundaries." 2. I called. If two people are dealing with the same fire, there's no sense pretending the smoke is a rumor. Henry's voice had the exhausted clarity of someone who has already done the math. He's been telling Natalie they're just friends who've been reconnecting. He said, last night he showed up with boxes. She wouldn't let him in. He slept in his car and told people he'd been thrown out. He's messaging her from different numbers. Showing up at our work. We're drafting a cease and desist. Cease and desist. I repeated, the words arranging themselves on a shelf in my brain. If your lawyer needs my documentation, I have plenty. He exhaled like he'd been waiting to hear that. Please send me the text. And if he tries you again, don't engage. He's looking for drama he can screenshot. Drama he can screenshot. That described Caleb more accurately than any horoscope ever had. The next morning, the phone calls slowed. The DMs did not. A cousin I hadn't seen since a childhood Thanksgiving wrote to say she always thought Caleb was too smooth. Which is not a rescue line, but is a kind of validation. A coworker sent a heart and then offered a couch, even though I was the one with the lease. People's kindness, misdirected or not, has a way of arriving like a surprise bouquet, beautiful, slightly bewildering, and loudly fragrant. At noon, Marissa, one of Caleb's loudest cheerleaders, the one who once told me I was lucky he'd chosen a woman with ambition, spotted me at the grocery store by the cereal aisle. "Ava," she said, as if we were running into each other at a charity gala. "I heard about the breakup. Don't you think you went a little nuclear?" I looked at the shelves, at all the boxes promising fiber and futures, then back at her. I made a decision based on the information provided. He was at his ex's because her roommate was having a crisis. He texted me, "Deal with it." So I did. She blinked, recalibrating her empathy. "He's staying with a friend now," she said. Your boxes outside her door. Some of his stuff was taken. Street lessons are free, I said, and pushed my cart away. As I turned the corner, I felt my heart rate go steady again. Not triumphant, not cruel, just exactly mine. That evening, my landlord Dmitri called. Ava. Hi. I just got a very interesting call from someone claiming to be your boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend. Ex. I said. He says you illegally evicted him and that I should provide him a key for his safety. I told him he's not on the lease and I cannot give keys to non-tenants. A pause. He also suggested I do a wellness check on you. Said you were unstable. My laugh surprised both of us. I made coffee for 2 police officers this morning. Actually, they were very reasonable. They saw the documents. They documented the false report. Good, Dmitri said. For what it's worth, I'm on your side. And Derek sent me the footage, in case this escalates. Thank you, I said, and meant the part that wasn't about logistics. There is relief in knowing your version of reality is not a solo project. By nightfall, Caleb's flying monkeys, as the internet affectionately calls friends who auditioned for the role of unpaid PR, had grown quieter. The single screenshot had done what paragraphs couldn't. Facts can be boring, but they travel well. When the buzz finally dulled, I stood by the window with the lights off and watched the city be itself taillights like a slow, red river. Windows blinking in unsynchronized Morse code. My reflection floated over the glass, tired, sûr, but intact. Somewhere in that brightness, Caleb was telling someone a version of the story where he was the one who'd been broken. Maybe he believed it. Maybe he needed to. The truth, I'd learned, doesn't always convert the people it should. That's why you keep records. That's why you say less and save more. I silenced my phone, set it on the nightstand, and slid between clean sheets that didn't smell like anyone else's cologne. Every muscle in my body understood the lock on the door like a lullaby. As I fell asleep, the words he'd sent kept floating back. Not like a taunt anymore, but like a blueprint I'd revised with a heavier line. Deal with it. Okay. Watch me. By Monday morning, the world was pretending to be normal again. Emails. Meetings. The smell of printer ink civilization's camouflage. But beneath the calm, I could feel the tremor of something building. M. An email blinked into my inbox from an unfamiliar sender, Rutherford and Associates. Attorneys at law. For a second, my stomach dipped. Caleb wasn't clever enough to hire a lawyer. Was he? I clicked it open. To Caleb Dawson, CC, Ava Whitaker. Dear Mr. Dawson, this letter serves as formal notice to immediately cease all contact with my clients, Natalie Reed and Henry Lawson. Effective immediately. Continued harassment, uninvited visits, and defamatory statements may result in legal action. Regards, Eleanor Rutherford. Isk. It took me a moment to process the CC. Caleb's chaos had looped me in by accident or intention. Either way, I had front row seats to his implosion. 2 minutes later, a reply fired off from Caleb's email. You don't understand. Ava manipulated this whole thing. Natalie invited me over. She owes me support. I'm the victim here. Then, because apparently humiliation prefers an audience, he hit reply all. A beat later came the lawyer's final message. Mr. Dawson. Copying unrelated third parties on privileged correspondence is inappropriate and unprofessional. Do not contact my clients again. The quiet that followed was glorious. I took a screenshot, added it to the folder labeled Cal Evidence, and went back to my coffee. That afternoon, a knock rattled my door. I looked through the peephole and sighed. 2 uniformed officers stood there, same precinct as last week's wellness check. One of them, Officer Myers, even gave a half smile when he saw me. "Miss Whitaker," he said, "we received another wellness call. Someone reported you were making threats toward yourself." I exhaled through my nose, stepped aside. "Let me guess. Anonymous." They exchanged a look that said, "We're not supposed to confirm that, but yes." I poured them both coffee, handed over a printout of the text thread. The building's guest policy, and now the lawyer's cease and desist. "You might want to start a separate file under weaponized concern," I said dryly. Officer Myers chuckled, scribbling notes. "We'll mark it as a false report. But he's escalating. You might consider a restraining order." "I'm considering an entire firewall," I said. That night, the anxiety manifested in the small, practical ways women recognize as survival. I reset passwords, changed banking alerts, locked my credit. A 10:40 și 2 p.m. A notification from my credit monitoring app popped up. "New credit application detected." I opened it. Caleb's name wasn't there, but the email address used for the application matched his old gamer tag, one of those usernames that once sounded cute and now felt like a warning label. It wasn't approved. But the attempt was enough. By midnight, I was on the phone with a fraud specialist, and then the police station, filing a report for attempted identity theft. The voice on the other end was Officer Myers again. He listened quietly, then said, "We'll add it to your case file. This guy's leaving fingerprints all over his downfall." Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home when the intercom buzzed. Derek's voice. "Calm, but tight, Ava. He's in the lobby again. Says he just wants to talk. Should I call it in?" "Yes," I said. "Document everything. Do not let him upstairs." By the time the officers arrived, Caleb was pacing between the vending machines like a man auditioning for rock bottom. I didn't go down, but I watched through the security feed Derek sent me. Caleb shouting at the officers, gesturing like he was conducting a choir of ghosts, then being escorted out, then sitting on the curb, phone pressed to his ear, probably calling someone else to lie to. I saved the clip. Timestamp, location, date all labeled. My desktop was beginning to look like a museum of poor decisions. Wednesday morning brought a different kind of storm. A string of texts from unknown numbers. "You really gonna ruin his life over a misunderstanding. He's sleeping in his car because of you. Be the bigger person. Ava." All unsigned. All identical in tone. I recognized the rhythm, Marissa's cadence, Caleb's phrasing. A copy-paste pity campaign. Instead of replying, I screenshot each one and attached them to an email addressed to myself. Subject line: harassment. Exhibit B, evidence. Time stamped. No emotion required. Thursday. A new email. This one from Dimitri. My landlord, Ava. Just a heads up. Caleb called again. This time, asking if he could come by to retrieve a package he left in the mailroom. There is no package. We denied him access. Also, he's telling people you're mentally unstable. Just wanted you to know I've got your back. I stared at the message, the mix of fury and relief curling like smoke in my chest. He was trying to erode reality now, not just invade it. That night, I poured a glass of wine and called my cousin Lydia, the only lawyer in our family who could handle both sarcasm and felony reports before dessert. She listened, didn't interrupt, then said he's escalating because he's losing control. You need your own attorney, someone who specializes in harassment and digital crimes. Don't wait. By midnight, I'd booked a consultation with a woman named Valentina Cruz, a name that sounded like a verdict. Friday morning, another email pinged in, this one from a credit card company confirming an attempted account creation successfully blocked. 3 attempts, 3 failures, and then silence. I didn't believe it was over. But I started sleeping again, until Sunday, when Tess called. Ava. You sitting down? That depends. I said carefully. Your ex showed up at my gym. Different branch this time. Tried to cancel your membership. Said you were hospitalized and needed to close all your accounts. I blinked. He what? Manager didn't buy it. Asked for proof of marriage. He stormed out. Thank you. I said, and meant it. I hung up and added another screenshot to the folder. The archive of insanity had become a fortress, but now, Caleb had stopped being a heartbreak and started being a case study. Every text, every lie, every borrowed empathy was evidence of a man building his own gallows with the rope of entitlement. When Valentina returned my call Monday morning, her first words were calm and lethal. Miss Whitaker, you've done half my job for me. Let's finish it properly. Her voice was steady, like the click of a safety switch. The following week was quiet, in the way danger sometimes pauses before it changes shape. Until Tess sent me a link. A local news headline, digital marketing employee fired after unauthorized access attempt. Below it, Caleb's full name. He had tried to use his work credentials to access my cloud storage, forgetting that his company monitored every keystroke. My pulse didn't race. It steadied. He was finally building consequences that matched his actions. The message from Valentina came 2 days later. Subject update. Case status Ava. Good news. The DA's office is moving forward on the identity theft report. Caleb's digital activity left a clear trail, attempted credit applications, IP logs, false wellness calls. The gym incident. Will be filing for a restraining order and restitution. Please do not contact him directly. Cruz. Esqui. I sat in my kitchen rereading that paragraph until the words stopped feeling foreign. For months, I'd been reacting, defending, proving, documenting. Now someone else had picked up the hammer. That night, rain stitched the city together outside my window. I ordered takeout, ate half of it, and found myself wondering not about him, but about the exact moment people like Caleb decide they're owed other people's peace. By Thursday, word had spread. Tess sent a voice note between sets at the gym. Your ex got himself banned from 3 branches. Tried to argue with corporate about his wife's membership. Corporate sent them the police report. It's over. It wasn't over yet. But the balance had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the one explaining. A week later, Valentina called again. Her tone brisk, but satisfied. Caleb's been arrested, she said. Identity theft, harassment, and attempted fraud. Apparently, this isn't his first time. Another ex in college filed something similar, years ago. Charges dropped back then. Not this time. I didn't speak for a moment. Then, what happens now? There'll be a hearing. You'll need to testify briefly. Don't worry, it's procedural. You have a mountain of evidence. The hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. Courtrooms have a smell paper, nerves, and old wood polish. When I stepped inside, Caleb was already seated with a public defender, thinner than I remembered. Shoulders slumped. The charm gone flat. He tried to catch my eye. I looked past him to the judge. Valentina handled the presentation like she was conducting an orchestra. Screenshots, time stamps, security footage, fraud reports. Each document landed with quiet precision. When the defense tried to paint him as a heartbroken man, acting out of distress, the judge raised an eyebrow. Distress does not justify identity theft, she said. The gavel came down with finality. 18 months probation. Mandatory counseling. Full restitution. 5-year restraining order. Caleb flinched, then glanced toward me again, as if waiting for mercy. I didn't have any left to give. Merce, I've learned, belongs to people who stop hurting you when you ask them to. Afterward, I stood outside the courthouse. The air bright and almost indecently normal. Valentina joined me on the steps. Congratulations, she said. You handled this better than most. You built your own paper shield. Thank you, I said. I just never wanted to need one. She smiled faintly. No one does. But it's good to have it. Weeks passed. Silence. At last, I didn't feel suspicious. It felt earned. I changed my number, kept my security systems, and finally stopped checking the peephole before boiling water. Then, an envelope arrived. No return address. Just a lawyer's letterhead. Inside was a short note and a check for $3. Ling, ling, ling. Miss Whitaker. Please accept this on behalf of my client, Roger Dawson. He was unaware of his son's actions and wishes to make restitution for the fraudulent charges. A. Rutherford. Esk. I set the check on my counter and stared at it until the numbers blurred. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. I deposited it the next day and closed the account the following week. Months later, Tess and I met for coffee. She eyed me over her latte. You look lighter, she said. I think that's what happens when no one's trying to hack your Wi-Fi or your sanity. She laughed. Dating again? Not yet, I said. Right now I'm dating silence. We're exclusive. Outside. Sunlight spilled down the street like an apology that arrived late, but still mattered. Sometimes, when people ask why I reacted so strongly to one text, I tell them it wasn't about a single message. It was about what that message revealed, that he believed my trust was permanent, my boundaries negotiable, and my self-respect optional. He told me to deal with it. So I did, just not the way he expected. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's simple. When someone shows you who they are, document it. When they tell you to deal with it, take them at their word. Then build a life where you never have to hear it again.